we all know about American money flowing into Chinese biolabs, which produce pandemics that kill millions around the world, and nobody's ever held accountable for it. But what about American biolabs where China has control? You ever think about that? Well, that's what's been happening in California. Here's the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Yes, we are taking a closer look at the Chinese Communist Party. They're reporting a lab was found in California, and of course, it has ties to China. Listen to this.
In December 2022, Code Enforcement Officer Jessalyn Harper noticed a green garden hose sticking out of the side of a warehouse in the small town of Reedley, California. The hose was a clear violation of the city's building code, so Officer Harper showed her badge and entered the warehouse. Inside the vast, dimly lit building, she found laboratory equipment, manufacturing devices, dangerous chemicals, and medical-grade freezers and containment units holding thousands of vials of biological substances. Some of these vials were unlabeled. Some were labeled in Mandarin. Others in a code that no one ever deciphered. Others were in English, with names of pathogens that Officer Parker did recognize, like HIV. The city also found approximately 1,000 transgenic mice used for research of human disease, which biolab workers told them were, quote, genetically engineered to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus.
So we have a Chinese mad science lab in California. What's happening here? Philip Lenczycki is an investigative reporter for the Daily Caller, specializes in China, specifically the Daily Caller News Foundation, its nonprofit sister organization. Philip, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay, but concerned. What is going on in California? We have Mandarin written all over the mad science lab.
This is really the most concerning story that I've personally seen this year. There's been just a ton of crazy things, obviously, but there's certain aspects to the story that really make it stand out. And so what had occurred was that in December 2022, as we just heard in that clip, this woman that we potentially owe our lives to, this code enforcement officer, Jessalyn Harper, she was in Reedley, California, a small town, and she discovered a garden hose outside of this building that was improperly attached. After investigating this over the course of approximately April to June 2023, Reedley, California city officials had tried to bring in FBI and CDC, and all told, inside they found thousands and thousands of vials of apparently pathogens. They apparently identified 20 of them. Some of these were like dengue fever, HIV, and there was even, and this is, where we get into the mad science level, quote unquote, a freezer of Ebola. Now, Ebola is obviously this, extremely frightening disease. It was the basis for that movie in the 90s, Outbreak, and it apparently has a 25 to 90% lethality rate. So all of these diseases are there, and what the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party announced yesterday was that the individual who owned that facility in Reedley, he is tied to the Chinese government backed companies, as well as he's been a quote-unquote corporate officer for companies that are involved in China's military-civil fusion program, which is connected to the People's Liberation Army, and more or less is a way for companies to share their technology and perform certain duties for the Chinese military. This individual has stolen millions and millions of dollars of U.S. intellectual property in the past in different operations in Canada, from companies that cost him, his life there. And he had to come to the United States under an alias and live here illegally, somehow got a driver's license, of course, and then began to operate this facility there that was ostensibly to sell diagnostic kits for like pregnancy tests to the American public. He would bring in these tests from China and then mark them up and sell them to us. So there's a lot of questions left, beginning with why the FBI and CDC wouldn't help the city officials in Reedley look into this, and so on and so forth.
But isn't that the whole point of the CDC? The Centers for Disease Control. So you have various vials marked with things like Ebola and HIV and COVID, and the CDC refused to investigate it?
That's correct. Apparently, the officials there were so concerned they contacted, of course, the FBI. They refused outright to look into this. Apparently,
It's insane.
And CDC apparently hung up the phone on the officials calling from Reedley mid-conversation until this occurred until a local Democratic representative there, Jim Costa from California, somehow persuaded CDC to get their butts on the site. But there, apparently, after doing some type of, cursory inspection, they determined that, there was nothing to see, that all the evidence should be destroyed. So that's what occurred. And it was only after that the officials basically said, hey, CDC, there's a freezer of Ebola here that you did not list in your report. What's going on? So it was that sort of reading it.
What explanation could there be, Philip?
Slapdash.
I'm sorry, Philip. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm trying to think. What explanation could there be beyond just rank corruption? This is insane to me, and I realize this is speculative, but when you have deadly pathogens inside of this shoddy little mad science lab in California, the Chinese government's fingerprints all over it, and the CDC has to be dragged in, kicking and screaming. They go in, they barely assess what's in there. They say destroy all of it, and then they skip the Ebola freezer. What does that tell you?
I don't know what to make of it. That's why this is so important and so absolutely terrifying to think that this could be in our backyard. What I can tell you from having looked into this, so we were one of the first outlets to pick up the story. I looked into this at the time in August and connected it, and our findings were confirmed yesterday in yesterday's report.
Yes.
That the company shared the same officers with folks back in China with a company called IDA there. But anyhow, the reason to say that is this is a sprawling operation, and it received, for instance, $360,000 in tax credits from Governor Gavin Newsom's Office of Business and Economic Development.
Of course.
So I don't know what the reason is why CDC wouldn't look into it, but it's possible that there are some political, considerations that they have not being embarrassed. I can't make heads or tails of it all, but what's clear, especially after this report, is that we need to figure this out.
Yes.
Because we also found in our investigation that there are additional locations. So this operation was both from the get-go we knew in Nevada and California, but having looked into it, there's other hubs. There was some footprint in New Jersey, in Colorado, in Canada. I spoke with Miss Ziba over there at the Reedley government over there, and she had told me that there was also some connections in, I believe, Louisiana. So there could be theoretically other offices or facilities like this across the United States.
Yes. California especially is kind of it's a wild west of all sorts of criminality, including, the cartels. We've talked about this before. Other Daily Caller reporting on this subject. The cartels have set up full-blown grow operations for drugs, and they've been getting away with it. The cartels have a strong foothold in California, so this is just the latest craziness from that state. To reemphasize the point that you and I have been discussing, the FBI and the CDC not initially investigating any of this, despite the shocking evidence that they needed to. Here's the Select Committee laying that out.
Reedley City officials reached out to relevant law enforcement, public health, and regulatory officials about their shocking discovery. The FBI declined to investigate. The CDC refused to speak to them and, on multiple occasions, hung up on local officials mid-conversation. Finally, frustrated, city officials turned to Representative Jim Costa, their local member of Congress. With Representative Costa's help, Reedley officials finally got the CDC on site. Based solely on reading the labels, the CDC identified at least 20 potentially infectious agents, including many in risk group 2 and 3. Per the CDC, pathogens in risk group 3 are serious or lethal human diseases. Despite the admitted risks, the CDC refused to test the samples or examine the unlabeled vials containing what appeared to be pathogens or other biological samples.
I'm looking here. The reports include the agents the infectious agents found by the CDC include SARS-CoV-2, that's coronavirus, COVID, chlamydia, HIV, E. coli, strep, hepatitis B and C, dengue virus, the rubella virus, and malaria. These were all found in one location in California. And so
That's right.
This is crazy. Is this the kind of thing that came up yesterday between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping? Did they discuss this at all that you're aware of?
It most certainly did not, if I had to put my money down on it.
Yeah, so they didn't. I mean, because if I was an American president and the Chinese government was sponsoring the like dangerous, reckless labs handling dangerous pathogens in the United States, that would be right near the top of the list, I think.
I would agree. There is no good explanation for this, as the Select Committee has pointed out. This business was, ostensibly to create and sell diagnostic kits for pregnancy tests and things of that nature. There's no reason why it should have a freezer of Ebola, period. So one is only left to wonder, what on earth could it possibly have been for?
Well, please keep digging on this subject, Philip Lenczycki. I know you will, and we'll take all the updates as we can get on it. Meanwhile, that meeting between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden yesterday, what do you make of it? What were the kind of the broad outlines in your view?
Yeah, this is very concerning as well. I suppose you knew I was going to say that, but we got some sense of what they wanted to discuss, and it seems now at this late hour, the APEC summit wraps up tomorrow, that really not too much was, solved or accomplished formally, at least. Apparently, for instance, just this afternoon, it was announced that they were unable to make any type of agreement on military usage of artificial intelligence, which, as I would want to say in a moment, might be for the best. But anyhow, a lot of the things that they set out to do did not result in any type of quote unquote tangible results, as we might hear otherwise from legacy media outlets. The concerning thing, obviously, is that just for starters, we are, to use language from the left, we're platforming a genocidal dictator, and that might get some scrutiny here, but the way that plays in China and across the world, which is what we have to be mindful of, is that Xi Jinping is on an equal footing with the leader of the free world. We need to keep that in mind. That is something to cherish and to protect.
Yeah, and I just imagine what imagery he's bringing back with him. He's got the streets of San Francisco lined with Chinese communist flags to welcome him. And he arrives, he gets a hero's welcome, as I mentioned. All these world leaders want to meet with him. And then in particular, American CEOs were lining up to shake this guy's hand and talk to him yesterday. And in fact, gave him a standing ovation at a dinner last night in California. I was just imagining the absolute publicity coup that Xi Jinping was able to achieve and that he can bring back to, shore up his domestic support.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very disgusting. It's disturbing what individuals and organizations showed up to that event last night. We had sort of a contingency, sort of the usual suspects from the investment world, Blackstone, BlackRock. We also had MasterCard. They sponsored what we called at the time the Genocide Games, which were the Winter Olympics in Beijing. There were also potentially, most concerning of all were several U.S. military contractors like Boeing and Honeywell. That should be looked into, obviously. One thing that I'll be honest, disappointed me was that, Elon Musk, he did not attend the dinner, but he attended the VIP reception beforehand.
Yes.
He looked, I'm not, an expert on body language, but he looked, uncomfortable to me.
I know.
I'm not trying to.
I agree.
For him,
I saw some of the video of him. He did look uncomfortable. Like he wasn't sure exactly how to. There was a Chinese reporter trying to throw some questions at him, and he answered them in a very terse way. Because look, the reality here with Elon Musk is he's very dependent on China for his supply chain at the moment because of all that battery technology. And this has always been the issue I've had with Elon. And look, nobody's going to be perfect. Let's be honest. But and he's been great on free speech on Twitter, now X. But my concern that's always kind of been there is how's he going to do on China, and what kind of pressure can he withstand if China brings it to bear?
That's exactly right, and I feel the same way. I would love to be a fly on the wall next time, he has a conversation in private with, a Joe Rogan or whoever, and they can really hash that out. Because I feel I want to believe. I want to believe that, as you mentioned, that he is this free speech advocate, and he does share these values, and that this is something he's trying to disentangle himself
For sure.
from. We definitely see. Apple, for instance. So Tim Cook was there last night. We know Apple's got Foxconn, their plant producing everything in China. So they're kind of in the same boat. Tesla's got Gigafactory in Shanghai. Maybe they're just, okay, I need to get out of there. But until then, I just have to play nice.
Yeah.
For instance, there's this guy, Robert Goldstein, there from Las Vegas Sands. Sands has now got a casino in Macau. So maybe that's the same game that's going on there. I'm not sure. Then you've got others like Amway, and Amway, their largest market now since I think like 2006 or something like that has been China. I mean, they're toast. Their fate is totally linked with China apparently. So it's difficult to say, but I'd hope that Elon is saying to himself, I got to get out of there. This is not who I am. I'm better than this.
Interesting. All right, well, we'll keep our eyes open. Philip Lenczycki, thank you as always. Really appreciate your insight on all these very important topics. Thank you, Philip.